This is Gaming Perspectives with Saul and Julie.
Okay, so today we have Panny and Aled from Leyline Press. So just to get to know you, both of you, when did you start gaming and what games did you play with at the very beginning?
So I think for many UK-based people, Games Workshop is the kind of formative sort of gaming influence. Specifically, if you've heard of Warhammer, that small niche indie British game. The stores sort of were just all over the British high streets, especially in like the 90s, and that's certainly where I got my first gaming experience when I was about 9. I'm sort of walking into that Games Workshop and then starting to play Warhammer, and it was sort of a slippery slope from there, dare I say.
So Warhammer, the miniature game.
Yeah, Warhammer 40,000, the miniature game. That was really my first exposure to tabletop, and as a result of mostly engaging with the hobby through reading lots of like magazines and stuff, because when you're a kid, you can't really afford that many miniatures to actually play a game, so you end up just absorbing and reading lots of books instead. So then I found out all about the sort of other specialist games they did, and then that eventually led to me playing Dungeons and Dragons in the end, and lots of other games. So yeah, I think that's the thing that sparked the hobby for me, I reckon.
Cool.
Yeah, well, Panny says it was on every high street, but he had the luxury of growing up in Romford, whereas I grew up in the mountains of North Wales, and I can assure you there was a lot of Games Workshop around there. So,
I'm sorry, nobody has ever described growing up in Romford as a luxury. Have you been to Romford?
No,
you've never grown up in North Wales, mate. So, you know. But we used to do, same for me really. Was Games Workshop was kind of the first thing sort of into the sort of wider nerd hobby, if you like. We used to do pilgrimages out to Chester, sort of like every sort of few months, and try and buy up as much as we could to bring it back. But as a result, like we weren't really exposed to much where I was growing up. So there's a lot of homebrew that we did in terms of like playing RPGs at least. So we just sort of like rip off stat lines from sort of 40k or Warhammer Fantasy, and then just kind of do an FKR game, basically, just like pick up a D6 draw map and just kind of like go. It wasn't until I was well into my 20s that I actually started playing like actual RPGs, because we just kind of made it all up. So
that's pretty cool, because like, I mean, that's like, well, I don't know what you'd call it. That's like spontaneous role-playing games, kind of.
Yeah, really. Yeah, it was. I didn't realize that it was weird until sort of like much later, and that most people actually sat and had like rule sets and stuff like that. Because we'd use Hero Quest a lot, because we had a copy of Hero Quest, but we'd lost the rules, so we didn't really know how to play. But we had all these cards and minis, and so you just kind of, and we had like a Warhammer rule book, so that was kind of like the thing. You just take what you have, and then you just adapt it, and so you just kind of start homebrewing sort of from the start, really. So it kind of feels a bit second nature to me, really, just to do that. So
So what age were you doing that at when you started?
That was around 10. We started
that,
but we did that all the way until everyone's kind of left for uni, really. So we were always if there was something we liked, like I remember doing a rule set for Avatar: The Last Airbender, like ages ago. So that's its own one now from Magpie, right? But I remember I wrote one for that back like when we first started watching it, because we were all like getting really into it, and I was like, oh, this is making an amazing RPG, like we should totally write up some rules. I think it was a card based one. We used a deck of playing cards to like kind of like track the number of like uses that you could do, like of like your bending. And I think some of them we assigned, there was basically like, you had a spell deck effectively of like one sort of like one of the suits of the cards. Each suit we corresponded, I think, to an element. And then, 4 players. So we just do like that basically.
Wow.
Sorry.
That's okay. Wow, that's amazing, because like I grew up just playing D&D, and it was my brother had a copy of not a copy of it, he had a photocopy of the rules, and so we played with these sheets, right? And we didn't have a game store either in my town, and so he made 20-sided die out of wax. He made a wax ball, and he shaped it, and he put it in paper. And I don't know how he did it, or before he found the plans for it, but so, and then being that it's made out of wax, it'd get kind of soft and kind of get funky rolls all the time. But we may do it. We never thought about the chit, because you can make like 20 numbers, put them in a hat, and take them out. We never even thought of that one, but yeah. So that's pretty amazing that you're like role playing without any rules, and you're just adapting something from 40K. That's pretty amazing, and I think it's pretty amazing.
I grew up kind of in the same places in the middle of nowhere, and we started playing Gamma World because someone gave it to my brother for Christmas, and that was our first experience with role playing. And the other people that we knew, somebody got a D&D book, so that's how my brother got me into doing it. But we were literally we were in a town of 3,500 people, so and an hour or so away from any city.
Yeah, no, we the village I grew up in, I think, has about 100 people, something like that.
Oh my God.
It's really, really remote.
Wow.
Yeah, when I was growing up, it's all in Welsh as well. It's like, mountain folk, we speak a different language. So, it's it's a weird place, but it was fun though, doing that as a kid. I miss those days in a way.
So, of course, there's Warhammer 40K stores or whatever they're called, and there wasn't one in your town, obviously. But so, how far was it to go to make forays into the city and be able to buy stuff?
You'd walk 45 minutes to the bus stop, and then you'd get on the bus for about an hour and a half, and then from there you could get onto the train, which was then about an hour to Chester. So.
Wow.
Yeah, that was the pilgrimage, we called it.
It was. That's
Chester, 4 Street, Chester. Yeah. And then we'd get there and we'd just spend all day in the shop,
Well, of course, you make that kind of a long commitment to. That's crazy. That's quite a bit of a for kids and young people to make. I mean, that for me, my brother was able to drive, so we drove to Monterey, which is about 20-minute drive to the coast from my little agricultural town. So not as bad as that, man. That's crazy. That's some dedication.
It's quicker when I can convince my mum to drive me, but
right. That's what I would figure.
Sort of do it yourself. Yeah,
that's amazing. That probably wouldn't happen these days with parents. Oh no, you can't go on all those bus rides and train.
I was like 13, and it was just like, go for it, son. Like, do you know what I mean? Yeah. Send you on the bus. It's fine.
You're a man now.
Do you guys feel that you play more, or you're more of a GM?
I'm definitely the sort of the forever GM. I run lots and lots of games and always have since I was about 16 is when I started running Dungeons and Dragons, 4th edition of all of them, and and it sort of just went from there, and I ran it all through uni, and then got into other different games, like stuff like Apocalypse World. I remember. And games like Scion, that sort of were my first exposures to indie RPGs, and I've just been like GMing lots and lots ever since, sort of whenever I get a chance. And now I do it. Coming up, I'm doing about 20 Salvage Union sort of one shots over December to partly to onboard players and get them excited about the game, but also I do enjoy running games, I really do. So it's fun.
I'm sort of a bit of both, really. If I can get someone to run a game for me, it's great. Because I do like both. I don't know. Yeah, I would say I'm pretty much 50-50 on that one.
That's cool.
When I tend to GM, it's because I tend to be the one who wants to have a game. So it's just easier to be like, okay, I'm setting up a game. This is happening. So sort of finding players is easier than finding a GM, right? So
right,
So that's I think why maybe I more GM. But that and drawing maps, I just like drawing maps mostly. So it's just a vehicle for map drawing.
Yeah. Well, usually it's like as a GM, you tend to become the person who gathers all the cats, to play the game.
Yeah.
And you're herding them and you're trying to get them together and all that stuff. So as a GM, I think I do the same thing. I probably GM more than I play, though. Now I'm like in a couple groups that we all rotate GMs. The only thing I miss about that is that there's no like long campaign like I used to play in when I was a kid. So, but still I'm playing. So I do like doing that. And I do like, and my collection of games, I usually buy them because I want to play them and try to convince somebody to run it for me, but I'm not very successful in that sense. So obviously, I was going to ask you about house rules and stuff, but Alan obviously just homebrewed his whole 10 years as a role player. So we know that one. That's pretty amazing. And how about you, Panny? Do you tinker with the games as when you first start playing, or even now, or do you just kind of play it straight? And what is it? The rules as written.
Yeah, raw.
Yes, raw.
Yeah,
I hate that term.
yeah. I'm not sure you can. So I think it's like talking about sort of piecing a game together, like you were saying. There was like you had the one Gamma World rulebook. I think that's what Jolene was saying.
Yeah.
You sort of use that, or Alan was saying, you piece together a sort of Warhammer rulebook and some old copy of AD&D you've got for some reason, and a hero quest box, and you work it out. And I think that's really like, I think that is sort of the heart of RPG secretly, is that sort of improvisational way of sort of playing a game, because their games are played primarily through sort of the medium of conversation, and improv is just a huge element of that. And I think so I'd say yes. I mean, I do it all of the time, but I also like, and I think, well, we sort of inject that into our games as well. We design our games in such a way that there are like missing blanks for the GM and the players have to like fill in, because we don't answer every question, because part of the game to us is leaving those sort of those spaces for players to then be able to inject their own ideas, and for GMs to be able to inject their own ideas and creativity, and make up rules where it fits, and just work out what works for them, rather than being like quite strict about, well, no, you can only move 5 spaces or whatever, and attack. You can't attack diagonally. That sort of rule set, which is its own separate thing, can be fun as well. I know there's obviously the tactical elements of games and whatnot, but I think that bleeds into our design a lot, I'd say. I think,
that's interesting. That's interesting, because like you both played Warhammer, and that's like it's all about the rules, right? Do people fudge in that game? I don't know. I've never played. I've never played Warhammer 40K, mainly because I don't have room to store the miniatures, and 2, I don't have ability to paint. So it kind of leaves me out of that genre. But aren't they very strict about rules about how you have to have them painted and stuff like that?
Yeah, they are, but as I was saying, I got into it when I was like 9 years old, and again, I was reading like articles in they had like White Dwarf magazine, or I'd have a random copy of like some old game like Necromunda that was like handed down, and then I'd have the rule set like a few, and I didn't know how to play the game. Like there were like strict rules, but I was 9 years old, so I was like, this doesn't make sense. So then I'd sit down with my friend and we'd play like on the floor, and we'd make stuff up.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
That's what kids do. Yeah.
I think the other thing as well, though, is like, obviously, Warhammer has like, quite prescriptive like rules, and I mean, people do fudge it, but like you shouldn't, and because like, you get caught doing that, that's a problem. There's but then that's the thing, right? So like then when you're coming to like, oh well, maybe we should do this thing, it's because, I mean, that's a different experience, right? Like, if you want to play the war game, then, war game's a war game. It needs that. And that's good. That's okay. But if you're trying immediately to try and do something else, then it just doesn't work for that experience. And, like Panny was saying, I think it's, that there's always going to be sort of like gaps in a sort of, an improv game, like an RPG, because you have to allow sort of flexibility for the creativity. That's part of what's so sort of interesting about it. And, so anyone who's ever run an RPG is to some extent a games designer, because you kind of have to be, right. And I think naturally people just are as well. Like, even as kids, you kind of like, even if you're not playing RPGs, every kid has LARPed. I'll say that nearly everybody has done a LARP at some point in their life, normally as children. And I mean, we just call it playing pretend, but it's LARPing. Like, do you know what I mean? It's, and that's what it is, right? Like it's just a more complicated term if you want to say you're doing it specifically like, medieval fantasy, and you're older. It's now it's a LARP, but before that, it's playing pretend, or it's like murder mystery parties and stuff like that, right? Like, everybody sort of like instinctively, I think, kind of gets it, and that's why I think people are so sort of drawn to it, and to change those rules and sort of make it fit maybe more their vision of what they want that to be.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, here we play. We didn't play Cops and Robbers or Cowboys and Indians. It was we were recreating scenes from Star Wars, right? Luke and Darth Vader when I was young, and so we called it playing pretend, and it was basically LARPing because we're like coming up with our own lines and rearranging scenes instead of like I don't like the way this happened, and here you are, playing with we were playing with broomsticks, but they were lightsabers in our eyes. So
no, exactly. Yeah.
So to me, when I was playing younger, when I was younger and I was playing, I think to me, I call that the golden age, even though of role playing, because all I did was role play. I don't remember doing anything else other than going out and riding my bike. Though, there are different stages where I play a lot of games, and then there's sometimes when I don't play very much. What about you guys? Do you guys feel like when you're younger, you guys were like in that golden age of role playing, or do you guys role play now more than you did when you were kids?
Go ahead, Alan. Let's not fight over it. I think it's.
I don't know. You're running 20 games.
I'm running. That's what I mean. Like, I'm not exactly like slouching on it. It sort of would be like a curve. I think. I've always just played a lot of games and like playing a lot of games. But I think as a kid, it's I think the magic there is kind of what's like lost in the sort of hazy memories of time, as it were,
right?
Of as I was saying, like me sitting down with my friend on our floor and just like playing with our Warhammer miniatures and just making all that stuff up. And I think that to me is like the sort of golden magic that you can't really get back because like I know too much now. I've read too much. Not to like my brain is huge and filled with pointless RPG info.
Too much knowledge.
My giant brain. Didn't quite mean it to come out like that, but I guess it did.
Things that
He's
I've seen.
tainted. He's tainted by the world. Yes. What about you, Alan?
I think it's inherently like, when you sort of like, what was the golden age? It's always going to be like when you were a kid, really. Like for most people, right? Like it's going to be that. But I mean, I'd also sort of like hazard to say that maybe it's not even happened yet. Maybe the golden age is like, still ahead of us. I think one of the things like, so my friend Mal, who actually was one of the inspirations for Salvage Union, actually, from a game that we played. But he's got 2 kids, and he plays loads of RPGs with them.
Yeah.
And he's sort of like said, it's really fun, and it's kind of like, that sort of getting that back a little bit in a way, because you see sort of like the enjoyment from them, because it's like the first time you do something like that, novelty always makes it a bit more exciting. Like, that sort of first campaign you finished and like, the big climax at the end. And like, you never forget that, right? Like, that's always going to be like one of the all-time games.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like Panny said, once you're sort of, bit older, more cynical, you've seen a bit too much.
No, if neither one of you have kids, I think you're right, because I have a son. He's 20 now, but he started role playing. I mean, I started playing because he saw us, the big boys, my wife calls us, playing games. He always wanted to play, even as when he was barely talking. And can I play? And he would sit at the table, and then my friends would let him roll dice and stuff. And so he wanted to play from a very young age. So I got him playing probably like around 4 or 5, just simple 2-player kind of like Aesop fables kind of thing, try to make the right decision. And then his friends heard what I was doing, and they're like, I want to play too. So then I'm like, I handed them the player's the Pathfinder book, and I go, when you can read this, I'll run a game for you. So they're like, but this is about when he was 6 or 7. And let me tell you, by the time he was 8 or 9, he was tearing through that book, right? To the point where I'm a terrible raw RPG player or GM. Yeah. So at one point he goes, okay, let's play. I'm like, really? He goes, yeah. And then he made a character. So I'm like, holy crap. So I got to make a game. So here I am. So I start running the game for him. And it was kind of like looking back at myself playing games for the first time, and he's like getting excited about killing a rat and this and that and stuff like that. Yeah. And so you do kind of have that. Was, you're right. There's different ages or different stages that we look and play. And I was real lucky to be able to run for those my son and his friends who were the same age. And so And my friend's dad, who's basically a large child, so it didn't matter. So he was just the same, because he had hardly played any games in the past, and he was one of those very luckily he didn't get into role-playing games back then, because he would have been just being in the basement and never come out type of guy. But anyway, so you're right. So there's a chance that anytime it would be a golden age. One of my friends, he retired a few years ago, and all he does is play games, right? I go, I play with him.
That's the thing, right? The nursing home of the future is all going to be like, 3, and everyone's going to be like just video gaming and playing D&D, and it's going to be that, isn't it?
I swear to God. my friends we've been talking about that, going, well, what are you gonna do when we're all old? He goes, we should just all live together in like a home or something and play games all the time. I'm like,
wow, classic LAN party, man. Let's grind this weekend, yeah.
So there's always a chance for the future.
Yeah,
literally
level up to your age.
Yeah. So you guys play up quite a bit. You're obviously very imaginative. Where does Savage Legion come from? Whose idea was it? How did it become? Oh, where did you guys meet? How about that? You guys are, you're from Wales, and Panny's in London.
Well, I moved down to London.
Okay.
Because there's not a lot in Wales. So moved down with my wife, actually, and I saw an advert for Modifius playtesting. So I thought, you know what, I'd been sort of trying to do a little bit of, I sort of did want to set up and sort of design a game and do a thing, but obviously it's like I had absolutely no idea about the actual inside of the industry or anything. So signed up with Modifius, and that's where I met Penny.
Wow.
Yeah, I applied for the same position, in fact, and I didn't get it because they wanted someone to help with marketing effectively. So I got a kind of marketing support position instead. So that's
we both applied for the same job. I got it. Panny got a better one.
Hey, debatable. You just got to play games all day.
Playtesting is not fun.
So
I know
they play the same game for 10 hours, and it's just like, let's just keep rolling these dice to see if something weird happens, and then if nothing weird happens, you're just like, cool, so we just spent 10 hours just like rolling dice. It's not the worst job in the world. I've had much worse jobs, I'm not gonna lie, but it's ain't all it's cracked up to be.
So that's cool. So you met play testing Modifius, and you were in marketing somehow, and but that's kind of like a leap to becoming this group that you are now and putting out a game. How did that come about?
I left just before COVID. It was really, really bad move on my part, because I think if I'd have stayed an extra month, I'd have been furloughed for ages. And so in the UK, it's like furloughed was their sort of during COVID, the government just paid like 80% of your salary, and you didn't have to go into work.
Wow.
So that was just like, oh yeah, well, if you're not doing anything, and I think most of the staff got furloughed for about 10 months, and that would have been awesome. But I quit to try doing my own thing, and didn't make any money. So that was a mistake. But yeah, then you quit just after, didn't you, Penny?
Yeah, no, I also made the same mistake.
Really?
I quit just before COVID and the pandemic as well. Partly just because of my living situation at the time. My commute became like 2 hours to get into work, and it was just starting to really affect me. There was that. And also, I think, in terms of how we ended up making games, I think, I don't know, being within in the inner circle of the games industry, I suddenly looked around, and without sounding too arrogant, went like, oh, I think I could do this. Like it like because it was just you on the outside, you're like, oh, it's amazing, and all these people are incredible, and they are, but you get in and you also realize they're human, and some mistakes are made, and you're like, oh, actually it's not as complicated or as inapproachable as it seems. It's just oh, okay, I get it now. And then, or similarly to Alad, I tried to go it alone, and it did okay, but it definitely wasn't going to be paying any rent or bills. And then we at some point decided to join our skills as well.
We were at the Dog and Bell, weren't we? And I'd been working on Salvage for a bit, Salvage Union for a bit. And we sort of just met up for a few drinks. And I realized I don't make any progress with writing. So I can sort of like, put ideas down. I can write frameworks really well. Like I can write frameworks when it actually comes to writing things and like, I just can't. So I sort of approached Panny. I was like, do you want to write a game? And then Leyline Press was born, really, wasn't it?
Cool.
Yeah.
So where's the name Salvage Union come from? I mean,
so that's what my friend Mal with the kids that he plays with, RPGs with, so he was working on a system called Bane, which was basically designed to run alongside these Lego mechs that he was building with his kid, with Jack, and so. And in that, so I did a play test of that with him. And did you play that, Panny?
No, I did. I remember because I had I brought my joystick just to add to the. I remember sitting there with a joystick playing this role-playing game with you, just pretending to be a mech pilot.
Where did you get a joystick from?
From actually playing Mech Warriors. It's a game I really like, so it's my Mech Warrior joystick.
Oh, heck yeah, I love that freaking game. Yeah.
Mech Warrior 4 specifically, Mercenaries was probably.
Oh, no, I played Mech Warrior 2. I just love that game. But
no, 2's good. 2, I did actually play. Had it on the Sega Saturn of all places to have Mech Warrior, and I played that as a kid and didn't understand anything that was happening, but it was cool. Like the movie at the front, the like FMV movie. I remember that being awesome. Yeah.
Right. Well, what's funny is that we both worked for Modifius, and I think it started just with like a wife and husband team, right? It's kind of how it started, right? So you guys, I like that idea that people can just like get together like you two have and start a company and be relatively successful. Like in your first, I don't know if this was your first Kickstarter, but I think you asked for like what, £8,000 and you made over 100,000. That must make you feel good, kind of. Right?
That was
kinda. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it wasn't bad. It's not $1 million or £1 million, but it's funny because I talked to several people who have Kickstarters, and they all have that same kind of feeling, like they're all nervous, and then the whole campaign can be a little bit what is it?
Daunting.
How did you guys go through that whole process? I mean, give me the ins and outs of your anguish. How did it feel?
First doing it was funny because I was kind of like, I was quite bullish about it, and I was like, I reckon we'll do around 40, 45. Like, Panny's like, nah, mate, it's just temporary expectations. Like, I'd be happy with 60.
He's trying to ground you. He's trying to ground you.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I did say I told you so, but
a couple of times, a couple of times.
Oh, a couple of times.
Just a few times. It was a very chaotic process in many respects and quite surreal. Like, we weren't expecting it to catch on. I certainly wasn't, as Alan mentions, expecting it to catch on quite as much as it did. I was still relatively obviously confident in the project because it was the reason we were doing it, and we had success in a smaller Kickstarter, Andromeda, which was a mothership module, which did £10,000 in the end, which was and considering it was like £800 goal I think we went for, and it was our first like as a company Kickstarter, and so that like exceeded our expectations as well, I'd say. And then then Salvage just blew up, and it was and that's been the last 2 years of our lives.
Right. So I always ask people who create and put it on Kickstarter, how much work did you put in before? Like, I mean, I've never done one, but I've heard people like the groundwork of the work before you even like think about starting the Kickstarter or hitting that start button kind of thing. There's a lot of work that kind of comes before.
We really smashed it for a month, didn't we? Because I already had some art that I'd commissioned for like an earlier iteration of it, and before I'd kind of started deving out with Panny. And so we had some art already. And then, basically Panny spent the first couple of weeks writing up the quick start rules.
Okay, yeah.
And then the second couple of weeks, I think I threw it in layout, did the layout. And then that was kind of the main thing, wasn't it? Was doing that.
Yeah, no, that was definitely the biggest piece of work. So, I mean, we called it a quick start, but I think it was like 100 pages.
It was huge.
Yeah.
I remember I downloaded it. I go, why do I need the book?
Yeah, but I think it worked. Like I think that piece of effort was absolutely worth it, because when you're an unknown, and like the art was really good, and there was some cool ideas there. But like when people can see it and download it and play it, they go that takes people from definitely. Yeah, this is a cool idea, but I don't know, to like, oh, okay, this is a real game. I've thought about it. I can play it. So yeah, it's probably going to be good if I back it.
Yeah, and it's probably going to get made. Like, if you go to the extent of making a 100-page quick start, people look at that and then go, all right, well, there seems to be quite a lot here, so they must not have much to do. So this is probably going to happen. Like, it's just that thing to, inspire confidence. And then, doing the video, I spent quite a lot of time on the video as well. Like, we had the custom soundtrack done for it, and you do have to. I think we invested probably about it was about $5,000 or something. We'd invested in art and assets, and we did Dragon Meat that year as well. So we took the money that we'd made from Andromeda and then sank it all into salvage basically. But you kind of need to do that, I think, if you want to have something that looks professional enough to to go that big, I guess.
Yeah. I was stunned with that that here in the United States we have the Chilton auto manuals, and and I'm like, that is super cool. And I don't know how many people work on their cars in the UK, but here when I was younger, not now because I won't touch the bay of my freaking Volvo. But like when I used to have a 67 Ford Fairlane, I mean, I could stick my whole body inside the engine compartment, and I would change spark plugs and all kinds of stuff. So I had one of those books for my car, and I think my dad had one for every car he ever owned. So I was like, wow, this is pretty funny.
Yeah. So in the UK they're called Haynes manuals. It's another brand, but it's the same principle, and and the design very much the same. So I think like everyone, certainly my generation anyway, like everyone's dad and dad, uncle, whatever, like had one of them in the garage somewhere knocking around, and my stepdad was always like super into cars, so we had like loads of them around,
Well,
so that was, I think that was one of the first things I did actually, was the cover design.
That's cool.
It's practically not changed at all.
Cool.
Yeah, no, that cover resonated. I remember yesterday we were at Dragon Meat, and I remember you had like a really long conversation with a guy about like Haynes manuals and all the various like ones you had, and then he bought the book, but I kept thinking, like, is he like, does he even play role playing games? Does he just want to? He just
does he think it's some kind of car?
Like I think he just liked the manual, like it reminded him of his childhood. I was like, that worked well in terms of design.
I know. You get your sales pitch anywhere you can, right? Like,
sales is sale. Sales is sale. Cool. So, at what point did you guys think that it was like, that you want to share this game with the world? I mean, was it always on the back of your mind, Aled? Because you seem to had this idea brewing for quite a while. I mean, it's one thing to think of it and play with your friends, and it's another to try to sell it right to the world.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've kind of been wanting to make stuff for a while, because, you kind of feel like you come up with stuff and it's like, you think this is pretty good. And, you're like, well, and I'd like to play this, and it doesn't really exist. So, that's really it. I know, I mean, the first initial concept came because when Games Workshop launched Adeptus Titanicus, and it was really expensive, and I didn't want to pay for it. So I started as a minis game because I wanted to make, my own minis game. I didn't have to pay £300 for. Then I was introduced to Lancer and really liked that, and that's when I was like, oh, actually, maybe this would be a good idea, because I really liked Lancer, but it's very crunchy, right. And it's really tricky to kind of like get to grips with, for me anyway.
No, I agree.
So yeah, I kind of bounced off it a little bit, and which is a shame because I absolutely love the book. Like, you know, the art, the lore, everything is really cool. So then, yeah, thus was born the concept for a rules light mech game.
I looked at. I remember years ago, I came across a Mech Warrior RPG book. I just loved the cover, and I looked at it. And I'm like, I don't know how you're supposed to play this. It was so complicated, right? And I'm like, and I never played it, right? And I heard that people who play that game usually role play, and then when it gets to the mechs, they just play BattleTech or something like that.
Yeah,
so it's kind of funny that you mentioned Lancer and how crunchy it is. No, and this one isn't, right? This is not very crunchy. You roll a D20, and it's not modified by anything, right? It's just a straight roll.
Mm-hmm.
What made you go with that kind of concept instead of like I don't know, I can't think of anything of right now, but anything that modifies the roll kind of game. What did you like about that mechanic?
So yeah, the core mechanic actually comes from a game called Quest, which is a kind of like fantasy, sort of classic fantasy adventure game, but does use the sort of same framework and we use with the flat D20. I think, I mean, to make a sort of, the goal was to make like, a simple and accessible mech game, but we still wanted the game to feel at least like you were playing one of the more like crunchy mech games. So we wanted elements of those, like the huge amount of customization. Sorry, Alan, go on.
Specifically, because I used to play a lot of Mech Warrior 3, and I mostly spent my time just in the mech bay building like different mechs. And yeah, I just wanted that, like, just character create the RPG. Sorry, Panny, cut across you.
No, that's true. Yeah, we wanted that because that is a really important part of mech games. As I was saying, I've played Mech Warrior and I'm playing a lot of BattleTech, both a video game and I dabbled a bit with the miniatures game as well. So we wanted that, and we also wanted like the crunchy interactions, but like mech games are good at doing, like, you know, you blow up, you hit a part of a mech with a missile and the armor comes off and breaks, or it does structural damage and a weapon gets damaged. Like, we wanted those elements, but then we wanted to take that away from like a sort of rules crunch to something simple. And that core mechanic actually does that really well, because one element of it, for example, is a tough choice where you have to like decide between like two different options. So you can sort of like sneak in the at least in a sort of narrative sense, that crunchy bit, because you can go like, oh well, tough choice here, like it hits you but it destroys one of your armor plates, right? So you can frame that, but more in a sort of role play narrative sense, but still get the feeling that you're like, blowing chunks off a mech, or like hitting one of its legs so it like drops down, you can get a better attack on it, but all done really just through like that core mechanic plus like improv and narrative and choice for.
Right. I mean, anything else I guess would start getting a little bit crunchier and crunchier. And then you're stuck with this like, boxes that you got to mark off and stuff like that. And
I mean, it's the just inherently, because we've got like obviously the mech crafting system in there, and there's hundreds of systems and modules, and there's like loads of them. We've got nearly 50 mech chassis now, including the modules. Like there's so much weight in knowing all the different bits of your mech and the things that you can activate and stuff like that, that having difficult interactions as a consequence of using those, it would be an absolute unqualified. You're building a magic sort of like game then, aren't you? Like when you're building a deck of systems modules, and then and when they all interact with each other like that, it's it gets escalates very quickly.
Yes, no, it does. And I think the other thing with the D20 thing is it's just simple. It means the game doesn't need any stats or skills. And one thing about mech games is you're secretly playing two characters, or maybe not so secretly, but you've got a pilot and a mech, and you're designing for both. And mech games deal with it in different ways. Some pretty much just like completely separate. That's what Lancer does effectively. It completely separates the mech and pilot part. So you do like pilot role play, and there's skills and mechanics for that, and then you do mech stuff, and they don't meet in the middle that much. But our game, we wanted to make it so they did, and you can jump out of your mech to do to leap on to their mech, or to salvage some stuff and take it back home to the to your mech and load it up. So we wanted the pilot to be a bit more relevant, but then having that flat D20 across both the pilot and the mech with no like stats or skills to remember made it a lot easier, like made those transitions in play a lot more easy than having to be like, oh wait, okay, so my mech has +5 mech strength, but my my pilot has +2 pilot strength, and oh wait, what one am I using? What role am I doing? You know, that sort of thing. Like,
I hear you.
so yeah, just keeping it simple, I think really worked.
Cool. No, definitely. I was looking at the that quest system, and I even looked up quest, and it's very interesting because it kind of reminds me. I don't want to besmirch quest, but it kind of reminds me of Apocalypse World, the whole choices and stuff. Except that obviously you're using a D20, not 2 D6s, and at being a big time role player from D&D, I love the D20, and I kind of I don't like those D6s. Those are for like attributes or stuff, but not determining the fate of stuff. So I really like that idea of that D20, and I mentioned this to my friends, and they're like, oh yeah, so they got the PDF, and they were telling me about it, and they were saying, and they're much more mathy is the word, because they're telling me percentages of success, and success with a consequence, and the chances of failure, and I'm like, it's all Greek to me.
Not only that, but they did the math, and apparently they did it wrong, because I saw 3 emails telling me, oh, I did the percentages wrong, this is what it should be. And I was like, okay, I like the 1d20, and then do you have to hit just a certain number, and if you don't hit that, are there like consequences?
Yeah, go ahead.
In terms of the system that Quest and Salvage Union uses, so it's if you roll the nat 20, you get effectively a critical success, so you succeed and something else good happens. 11 to 19 is your standard success. 6 to 10 is a tough choice, so some sort of choice with consequence, but you get to decide it. 2 to 5 is a failure, and then nat 1 is like a failure with a consequence. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so they're telling me, they're typing to me, I should say, in the email, all these chances of success or the percentages, right? And I'm like, okay. And I just took it for granted because I'm not a statistician. And then one of them wrote back, going, oh no. My friend is Mike, and the other one's Bay, and Bay comes and goes, oh, Mike got the percentage wrong. Their actual percentages of this, and I'm like, you guys are crazy about this stuff, man. I just asked you to look over the game to see if you liked it and might have a chance to play, and they're like, yeah, we'll play. So it was pretty good. So obviously, one of them, Bay, said that he really liked the way you guys presented the information or presented the book, and he goes immediately I'm immersed in what this book has to say, and grabbed his attention. So you guys obviously did a great job, obviously, because just 2 of my friends, and they both liked it quite a bit. And I think it's amazing that you go out and you get artists, and you put this thing together, and then your Kickstarter kind of goes pretty decently for both of you. You guys are pretty happy with the results. At what point were you guys like nervous? Did you guys get nervous about being so successful, or was it or you guys more happy than anything else? Because I know as you get more successful, you're like, oh man, you're like, now we really have to, I think
got really nervous around the fulfillment, I think.
Yeah.
And just making sure that it met up to what we wanted it to be.
Right.
I think, I think that's for me, I guess the nerves, I would speak for Panny, but for me, the nerves is more in keeping it going, because you're kind of I really like this. And I want to chase that. And, keeping it going is obviously the difficult thing, because then you just get nervous that sometimes, well, maybe, I don't know, maybe this is just me, but I get sort of a bit nervous that maybe we peaked too soon.
Right.
It's are there any more ideas? I don't know. Sure, I'm sure there are.
There's lots of ideas on the idea train. I think it was more of I don't know if I felt nervous. It was just quite a surreal experience to me. It had just resonated so much and did as well as it did at the time. And obviously, yeah, then suddenly it's like, oh no, okay, now I do have to make this thing and we have to make it good. And like, fortunately, like in terms of like, we had written the quick start, which was a good core like basis. So it wasn't like we had a blank sort of sheet of paper to give me nightmares. But then we still had put like a lot of work between us both, of course, to get everything to be finished line. And the whole process, yeah, was definitely nerve-wracking in terms of hitting writing deadlines and getting art in and getting it all collated, put together, and obviously the nightmare of distribution, which we've been involved in, and the complexities of that, especially like internationally and whatnot. So yeah, it's been it's been an experience, a learning experience, let's say. It's but sometimes feels like digging holes for yeah.
Yeah, I guess fulfillment is really tough, especially in an international scheme, right? In an international place, you're shipping books all over the place. Shipping costs are kind of weird and crazy. Do you guys do that? I mean, do you guys are involved with that, or did you guys hire like logistics people?
Yeah, we
really?
Do it internally. Yeah, so we've might as well. We have a distributor in the US.
Right.
So but we send the pallets, we wrap the pallets up in the studio and put them on the van and then
so the pallet, the books came to you and you guys are mailing them out.
Yeah. So
crap.
Actually, when we were distributing this week, we fulfilled 3 Kickstarters. We were in the studio from till 12 a.m. and on Thursday, which was the last collection by Royal Mail, because we wanted to make sure everyone had them, obviously, before we launched on Friday, and then went Dragon Meet on Saturday. And the lift in our building broke. We're on the third.
No.
And the lift broke, and we had 2 shipping cages full of packages to go out, about 750 kilos. So what's that, like a ton and a half of books?
Yes, it's a lot of freaking books.
And we had to carry them all down the stairs, as well as one of the shipping cages down the stairs. So we were running up and down stairs. We had 20 minutes to do it before the van left. And so
you got a workout.
Yeah. No, it was just like this. Sort of, we were like trying to get the lift working for like 10 minutes and it just wasn't happening. And we were like, oh God, but we did it and we got it out. So, yeah.
And it only broke me physically and mentally. Yeah. That was,
that's a price.
Oh my God. That's when you call up all your friends and say, hey, let's go out for dinner. But first, I got something to do. Will you help me? And then put a bunch of stack of books on them and start marching.
Well, we had 20 minutes, which was the fun bit as well. Because the guy with the van was
that's a lot of going up and downstairs. That is crazy.
Yeah.
Well, you shipped all your books for the Kickstarter? They're out in the mail?
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, they're all out in the post now. From our end, at least.
That feels pretty good, then, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, it feels amazing.
Yeah, we did it. It's still not really sunk in, I think, just because it just feels like we've been so adrenaline fueled, especially the last week. But it's not sunk in. But like the project is like effectively fulfilled now. It's weird actually. Yeah, because it's been, as I said, like the last 2+ years of both our lives, just really focusing on getting Salvage Union fully finished, and we've done it, and it is good, but like it's not sunk in at all for me yet, to be honest. It still feels like Monday I'm going to be like, oh no, well, got to work on some more copy for Salvage Union just to get it to but no, it's done.
So the Salvage Union came, the Kickstarter, you guys had like extra books, adventure books and stuff added to the stuff that was available. So obviously there's quite a bit of stuff there. What about the future? Are you guys still going to add more adventures with Savage Union? Are you guys going to switch to a different game maybe? Or what kind of, I mean, if you want to share them, I don't know if you have any ideas or even want to talk about them, but where's Leyline Press going after this? I mean, this is a big deal. Salvage Union is a game printed, and you had a very successful Kickstarter, so you guys feel pretty good about that. But there's also, as a company, you have to like keep rolling forward, right?
Well, rolling's a good segue. So we are doing a Kickstarter for a Roll20 VTT conversion of Salvage Union. Yeah, we thought. We've not been very busy lately, so let's do a Kickstarter.
Not even a little break, huh?
Yeah, no. We're literally launching that in theory next week. We've got all approval and we've got it set up and we've got some developers on hand, specifically get a company called Game Day Preppers who are helping us out to like convert everything. And the goal of that is obviously to get it onto the Roll20 platform, but it's also accessibility. So like one of the key things about Salvage Union, I think was like it's easy to learn. It's like an accessible mech game. We want a game that like is easy to get into and play, and there's not like a lot of barriers to entry. And it being on Roll20, I think will really help with that because it's the internet is a pretty big deal these days, and
I think
a lot of people play online. A lot of people play online. So
because of the. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just making a joke. I still don't agree with it personally.
Oh, really?
It's not going to take off.
You still have your doubts about this whole internet thing?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a fad.
Blow over.
Yeah. And actual plays. Who's going to watch other people play games? That's crazy.
Yeah, right. Watch someone play a game.
That is to me. That's still nuts. That's still kind of nuts to me. It's hard to believe. So, you guys are you're gonna kickstart a VTT for Roll20.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. So that's kind of outside. You guys aren't programmers or anything like that, right? At all.
No.
What's that like? Because at least when you're writing for the game, you're writing it, right? You know what you want to say and kind of what you want out there. And this is kind of like out of your wheelhouse, kind of.
That's the thing about it. Because, what we can do is we'll raise the money and we'll just pay other people to do it. So we don't have to. It's great.
Not going to be hands-on that one at all. It's the experts, I say.
So do you guys play a lot online? I know Alan seems to think it's a fad, but
no, I do play online because my friends live all over the country, so you kind of have to. No, I was just joking with that.
No, there's some people who don't like it, right?
I prefer in person. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think most people do, but some people are so staunch about it that they will refuse to play online. Except maybe the pandemic kind of made people either you do it online or you don't play, right? Kind of.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So.
I play a lot online. I do prefer in-person games for many reasons. I think you just get that sort of connection with people, which is really important for role-playing. But I play a lot of games online. I play a regular D&D. I play 2 D&D games online. I run one and I play one. Wow. And obviously all the Salvage Union games I'm running. We're doing a launch event at a place called Badger. Near us in Deptford, where I'll be running some in-person games. But other than that, all the sort of 20 or so Salvage Union Discord games are all going to be online as well, because how else would you play with sort of people all over the world? And it's cool, it's cool to play from people in the US or in Australia or sort of all over the world without having to leave my bedroom. So I can't complain in many respects.
That's amazing. How about you, Alan?
Panny does a lot of the game running and stuff. I'll be running one at Badger, but because I handle a lot of the fulfillment production stuff, the last 6 months have been pretty grueling for me. So I am going with my wife off to the middle of the desert in Morocco for a week, and then back up to Christmas. So I'm just going to go and hide for a bit and
recover in the desert. Cool. Well, congratulations. Have a good time at your retreat or your vacation. I guess you guys call it a holiday. Here in the United States, we call it vacation. But Morocco, personal. I don't know if you want to know, but I've never even. Why Morocco? What's interesting?
Two reasons. One, my wife's Indonesian, so so she has an Indonesian passport, which means that it's kind of difficult to get visas to a lot of places. But Morocco will do visa on arrival for Indonesian passport holders. So that's reason one. Reason two is Ryanair, who's like a low-cost airline, European airline, Irish airline, basically just started doing flights to this like little town called Ouarzazate. And so the flights were £35 each return. So I was kind of like, yeah, okay, cool. So those are two major reasons for specifically picking Morocco. But
Perfect.
Yeah.
35 pounds.
Yeah. So yeah.
Cool. How about you,
Wow.
Panny? Are you gonna take a little time off or take a breather, sort of?
I'm just trying to. What's that? What is time off, Precious? Yeah,
We need a
yeah. Oh god, I should do, but not for the moment. No, I'm obviously running a Kickstarter campaign. It will take a little bit of time and effort, and launch games. So like we're in terms of like our partnership, I think one of the reasons it works really well is because we're both good at different things, and we sort of fill each other's we fill each other's holes, as it were. I couldn't think of another word, but hey, yeah.
I said that once years ago, and it stuck. Like without we fill each other's holes, and it's made its way into
that's
nice. Company culture now, isn't it?
Yeah. I do. I do like a lot of the marketing. Obviously, so that's where actually a lot of that's why I got the marketing job at Modifius, because that's where a lot of my experience actually was in terms of like press comms and marketing when I was back when I was working not at Leyline Press or whatnot. And I do like a lot of writing and running games and the sort of community social outreach social media stuff and whatnot. And then, Aled does all the layout design, project management, business management, like all sorts of things that aren't like in my wheelhouse. So we have a good split there. Yeah. But which means I'm going to be very busy because we're moving to the market the game stage of the be too cynical. Yeah.
So when do you think that Kickstarter for the VTT will be around?
So it'd be next week, I think. We're
wow!
Launch if all goes well. Yeah. So
don't take too long, Panny.
Well, yeah.
Wow.
But maybe I don't know, January, maybe. I don't know.
Jesus.
February. I don't know.
Oh well, you guys have a great holiday. You guys look like you guys have a good hit on your hands. I can't wait to play the game. And so with my friends, and hopefully you have a good vacation in Morocco and enjoy your time off, your well-deserved time off. And Panny, I don't know, you keep working, I guess. Workaholic.
Right, rise and grind. No. It's worth it. I can't complain.
Yeah, you guys got anything to say before we get off the microphones?
Thank you for your time. And I suppose, to plug my Salvage Union, if you want to get hold of it, you can go to www.leyline.press, and we have the full game and free adventure modules currently available.
Right.
And we've got free UK and US shipping over £40 as well. So
right. So you have an actual shipper from the United States.
Yeah. So we've got all the stocks in the States. We paid to get it over there. So now that it's there, we can do that free shipping thing. So we've got a lot of customers in the States. So we need to keep you happy so we can bring some of that, good American money back to Blighting.
We're struggling here.
We're struggling. Things are bad, guys.
Sad money. So Jolene, my wife, she doesn't allow me to buy too many role playing games, but I think I'm going to buy one of your books because it looks pretty cool, and at the very least, maybe a couple modules. That way, I don't have to think about making adventures and stuff. So, thank you very much for coming. For us early, but for you in your afternoon, after a very busy month and day and week, and stretch out those muscles from carrying all those books and stuff. Alan is getting stiff already.
No, I have to go downstairs now and empty the car. It's still got all the con stuff in it.
So you're not done yet.
Go home and cook a roast dinner. So there we go.
Well, guys, have a good holiday. Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Saul. Yeah.
All right.
Jolene. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah.